Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, PhD, and this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving, purpose-minded women who've written nonfiction books and want to amplify their message beyond the book. I'm a college professor, and when I'm not doing that, I am speaking, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women who have written books how to use their books to make a bigger difference, have more impact, and purpose. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and take time to listen into the podcast. I say it all the time and I mean it all the time. I really appreciate you for listening in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please go ahead and rate, subscribe, and review, and that will help us keep the podcast going. All right. And today I'm talking with Chellie Phillips. Now, not Chellie, Chellie Phillips. I say that like that because I think it's a beautiful name. We just had a conversation about it. And she is the author of the book, When in Doubt, Delete It, which I can't wait to hear more about, in which she created 36 life edits using her 20 plus years of experience in mentoring, team building, and corporate public relations to show you how to take control of your choices and beliefs so you'll be ready to walk through the door of opportunity when it opens for you. Can't wait to hear more about it. Welcome, Chellie Phillips.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking so forward to talking with you and your audience today.
Me too. I'm so excited. Let's just jump right in. Okay, I just read that little piece, but why don't you tell us in your own words, whatever you want to share about yourself and your work?
So my background, like you said, is in PR and marketing. But before that, I was actually in newspaper. And so I was a features editor. And, the coolest thing about that was how many people it allowed me to meet. And I learned that, the important thing is that we all have our story. And we all have our different backgrounds. We all have, we're all coming at things from different places. But really and truly, what we all want is kind of the same. We want to be successful in what we're doing. We want to have happy families. We want to be able to provide value in some way for what's going on. And so, that's where I take my background from, where, learning to tell people stories and how they can have impact and what they're doing. And then being able to translate that later on into the corporate side of things. Like, I'm not telling people's story anymore. I'm telling a company's story. And the company and what impact that they're doing and how they're making the community better where they reside and how they're offering opportunities for families to come work there and provide for their family and get these opportunities. And so it kind of comes full circle when you're able to actually write your own story for a change and be able to share that. And so the book, When in Doubt, Delete It, is kind of just a compilation of, I tell everybody, it's like if you were sitting on the front porch with your best friends and you were all talking about, all these things that you've learned and what you wished you had known then and the reflections that you have now from the hard stuff that you went through and how that helped you prepare for something else that came later. It's like you were sitting there sipping on that sweet tea, having that whole conversation. And so that's kind of where the book came from, is like just sitting around and like, what do I wish I had known, or what do I wish I could share with somebody that would encourage them to continue on that journey and be able to achieve whatever it is they wanted to achieve.
I love that. I could see two friends sitting right there having that discussion right now. I love that. I think it's a wonderful concept. So what would you say I like this 36 life edits. Say more about that and what you're thinking about 36 life edits.
Yeah. So, I said my background was in newspaper. And so when you start writing, one of the first things that you have to get really comfortable with is someone editing your work. And I remember some of the first stories that I wrote, turning in to my editor, being so excited about them, and then getting a paperback. This is way back before we did everything on computers. Getting a paperback that was covered in red ink and looked like something had bled all over it, like, you're sitting there that moment of, oh no, I'm crushed. I thought I told a great story. But then you realize that the edits that they made improve that story, that they allow someone to connect better with it, or they allow the true meaning of that story to get through. So that's kind of the premise of this, that there's edits that we need to make in life to be able to make sure that we achieve things or we learn things from what we're doing and not repeat some of the same mistakes. And so the book actually came to me. I was sitting one night editing on my couch a newsletter that we had going out for the company that I worked for. And it was the when in doubt, delete it. Was, with edits, if you've ever done anything like that, there's little edit marks that you use so you don't have to write everything out. So if you want something capitalized, you put lines under it. If you want something to delete it, then you make this little swirly kind of thing on top of the word and let people know, take it out. And so I was sitting there, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could just delete things from life? So that's where the title of the book came from, and everything was when in doubt, delete it. And then I got to thinking about it, and there's a set of 5 edits that you're going to see over and over again, like when you're first starting in newspaper and that kind of thing. One of them is the delete mark. There's stuff that you just got to delete and get rid of. Then there's that paragraph mark, which means begin, start something new, put a new thought here, put something new needs to go here and start it here. So there's things we need to begin in life. And then there's a move mark, like this would be better here, so move it here. And so there's things that we need to move towards or away from in life. And then maybe there's something that needs clarification, and there's an insert mark that you need to insert something here in life, whether that's in the case of the book, inserting celebration, inserting joy and those kind of things, and really living in the moment. And then finally, one of my favorite ones, and it's one that a lot of people, unless you've really worked around the world where you get edits on things a lot, you've probably never heard of, and that's called STET. And so what that is after an editor's gone through, they'll go back and be like, now that I've read the whole thing, no, I think you had it right the way you did it. And so they'll go back on top of an edit and write STET, STET. And what that means is you had it right. You were true to yourself. You were authentic to yourself. So leave it like that. So throughout the book, it's made into 5 buckets around those edits. And each of those are stories that we talk about. What are the edits that we could do for life?
I love that. I love that. And as you were talking about those marks, I could see them, and I remember seeing them in red.
Yep, absolutely. They're going to stand out for sure.
I remember seeing each one of them in red. That was very creative. That's really good. A really good idea to do that. All right. So since we're talking about editing and the metaphor of that for life, as you were going through the process of this book, writing this book, what were some of the edits or challenges? So not literal edits, but some challenges that you experienced in the process.
So, the first one that I would really say is I'm just going to jump in there with that begin edit. And one that, I think we all struggle with at some time is like believing in yourself. You've got to begin to believe in yourself. And, whether it's you're starting a new job, whether it's you want to write a book, whether it's you're moving to a new location, whatever it is, everybody was like, oh, like, should I do this? Should I take that chance? Should I step out there and do that? Do I have what it takes to really embark on this journey? And in my case, I tell everybody that belief in self is so important. And I talk about in the book, and if we have a few minutes, I'll share this story with you and your audience, that if you know me in real life, I am a sweet tea sipping Southerner. I love me some Coke Zero. I'm never going to pass up bread, and I love me a good chocolate cake better than anything else in the world. So if I told you that I did a half marathon, you're going to probably look at me and go, you, but it was one of those things. I had a group of women, and I said, this goes back to this tribe of people that you surround yourself with is so important. But I had a group of women, and that we would meet together after work a lot and go walk, and we'd do little workouts. And there were a couple of them that were avid runners in that. And now when I say I had ran, by that I mean I had walked mostly some 5Ks for some charity events and things like that. But one evening got caught up in the moment, like, let's do a half marathon. Let's take a girls trip. Let's do a half marathon in Nashville of all places. And so, at the time you're talking and you're all excited, and then you start planning the vacation part of it. You don't worry about the half marathon part of it. And, it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. We can do this. It's like 8 months away. There's plenty of time to like make this happen, whatever. And then you start thinking, wait, half marathon, that's 13.1 miles. What am I thinking? Like what's going on? And I tell everybody the registration for the event opened on December 31st. And so, you know, up until that point in time, it hadn't really got real because, like, we were planning the trip and it's like we were doing a little running, but nothing really major. And we were still mostly doing our walking and whatever else. And we come along to the time for the registration. And I remember the day so clearly. I was sitting on my couch and I literally had made myself sick to the stomach. Like, what are you thinking? You can't do 13 miles. You're going to let them down. You're going to be the only one that doesn't finish the race. You're going to hold everybody back. Everybody's going to want to, like, you're going to have to help them. Like somebody's going to have to help you along, be there with you. And like, oh, this is not going to work. I can't do this. I don't want to be part of that. But then you don't want to be left out either because like, I'm going to see all these people at work and after work, and I can't be the one that just doesn't do it and not part of the group. And so like it was like a day-long struggle with me to fill out the registration form. My husband looks at me like, you have lost your mind. Just either don't do it or do it, but quit talking about it, whatever. And so finally filled out the registration, and then it's real. Oh my God, I have to actually train for this and do this. And so it's going through that journey. And I won't ever forget there was a particular point in time, and it was when we were meeting together and we were going to do what I call one of our first longer runs. And we were going to do 7 miles. And that morning, I'm not a morning person either, but we always seem to do these things before daylight because at the time I was in South Alabama. And if you waited till after 10 in the morning during the summer, you couldn't do it. I mean, so like you had to get up early before the sun came up and go do these kind of things. And so, I'm on my way to go meet my friends, and we picked a neighborhood we were going to go do it in. And I cried all the way over there because I had convinced myself that I'm going to be the one, I can't do this, that I'm never going to make 7 miles. And by the time I had got there, I was so worked up over, well, now they can't see me this way. I've got to just go along with it. And I don't want them to be running back and forth, keeping up with me and checking on me. And, so we had this long powwow when we got started, like, okay, look, I'm going to do this. It may take me till noon to finish. Y'all don't wait on me. Y'all go do your thing, but if y'all hadn't seen me by lunch, somebody come check on me and find me. I'm probably dead in the ditch, And so we take off, and my friends are very strategic because they knew I have too much pride to say, somebody please come stay with me. But they would run ahead and then somebody would drop back. And they would kind of wait for me to catch up. They'd kind of pace themselves, and they would stay with me for a little bit. And they would be like, oh, I was catching my breath, all this kind of stuff. And then they would run on ahead. And then a few minutes later, somebody else would drop back. And, it was about 5 miles in, and I realized, y'all are doing this on purpose. I was, whatever. And so by the time we finished it, and we got done with it. And it was another one of those emotional releases when coming towards the end, I could see the house we were going to get finished up in. I cried all the way to that house again because I had actually finished it. But I was so thankful for that group of people that I had around me, encouraging me. And from that moment, there's something that triggered in my head when I said, oh, I did 7. That's over half of what I'm going to have to do for that race. And I didn't die. I made it. And I actually did it in a decent time because the race had a time limit on it. If you didn't finish it within 4 hours, it didn't count. And I'm like, I'll be darned if I'm not going to get the T-shirt and the medal when I go up there if I did it. And you can kind of see it's back here on the wall behind me in the frame with all the bibs and everything else. Yes. And so I keep it to remind myself that, there's these struggles that come along and that you have to believe in yourself. And so after that day, it became that thing in my head is like strong enough and fast enough. And with every step when I was training, I would kind of think that. And through the race, I would think that. But what it did, it changed something in my mind when I got finished. We went to Nashville. We had a great time. We did the run. I got the T-shirt. I got the medal. I didn't win anything major with it except for that moment of satisfaction that I did this. I accomplished this.
Yes.
And, it was like when you got home and you reflected on it, it's that belief that, I call it that impossible. When we accomplish something that we thought was impossible, it
Mm.
changes the way you think about things. And when you accomplish one of them, the next thing that comes up on the list that looks impossible, you've got this to believe in and this fuel that you can pull from. It's like, uh-uh, I did it before, I can do it again. And so that belief in yourself that you can achieve, that you can do, even if it's hard, even if it takes you 6 months longer than what you thought it should take, most of the time the schedules are ours. They're not someone else's. We're the ones that's putting that deadline. I've got to lose 30 pounds by this, or I've got to have this new job by whatever day. We're setting those deadlines. And so it really, when you stop focusing on this imposed deadline and just on making those small steps every day, firmly believing in yourself that you can get there, you really can accomplish it and do it. And it'll change the way you think about everything once you make that first impossible, mark it off the list and get it done.
Yes, that's such an inspirational story. And it has so many gems in there. So many gems, the support of your friends, the importance of support of other people when you're doing a big task like that, when you're trying to reach one of your goals. So many gems. And then having that sense of accomplishment, like you talked about,
Mhm.
and what that does for your belief. Now you could always look back on something you accomplished, a major accomplishment like that, to know if you've done that, you can do something else,
Absolutely.
which increases your belief. I was inspired just as you were talking about it. I was so engrossed in the story. I was like, oh, right, right. We're having a conversation here. That's wonderful. So, what would you say is one of your greatest joys as an author in this process of, right? You've wrote a few books, but I'm most fascinated by this one.
Mhm.
As an author overall, what do you think has been one of your greatest joys?
I really think it is hearing from someone that that a piece of it resonated with them or made a difference. One of the things with the book I did was I included like 3 reflection questions at the end of the chapter so that you could take that edit and how would you apply it and what would you do, and you know is there this piece in your life that you can and I'm big on journaling. I think journaling is huge, and the way that we work through things, so you can really take those and do that. And it was funny to me when you write the book. I tell everybody by the time I got through the editing process and the publishing process, I was kind of sick of the book for a little while. I mean, it's like, I didn't want to look at it. And it wasn't, while all the stories still mattered to me and that kind of thing, it was like, I just don't, I'm done with it right now. I need to like step away for a little bit. And I remember when I did the audio version of this one, that as I was listening to the chapters, when I would get them back and hearing someone else tell the story, and I could hear it from someone outside looking in, like, oh my God, yes, that's exactly what I was feeling. That's how it is. And there's so many people that can relate to that and do that. And to me, as an author, as a writer, the thing that really I love about the book is the way it connects you to someone. So
Mm.
whether I'm at a conference talking about it, or whether I run into someone, or someone drops me a Facebook message, hey, I read this, I love this part, whatever, it's that connection that you have with somebody, and that realization is that we all deal with these things in life. Sometimes we doll them up pretty, and sometimes they're just ugly, and you just got to have that ugly cry for the day. But we all have the same things that we go through, and being able to make those connections with people. And now, thankfully, like with the internet and social media and all those platforms, I don't have to be in Alaska to connect with somebody. I can sit right here in Georgia and connect with them, and have real conversations about it and share. And probably one of the stories that I've heard, the marathon story that I share in the book, like that half marathon story, I get a lot of people that resonate with that one, and they tell me, oh, well, I kept them going, that they are going to continue that journey or whatever, not necessarily with a marathon, but something they were trying to accomplish, that it gave them whatever strength they needed to, like, okay, let's reassess, let's do what we need to do. But then there's another story that it took me forever to write, because it was about losing someone that was close to me. They had battled pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And, I hear more and more, that's one of the things I hate, that connects us so much, that, most everybody knows somebody or has some connection with someone who has dealt with some form of cancer in their family, and a close friend, coworker or something like that. And the thing is, I tell everybody, coming from the South, raised good Southern Baptist, there's some things you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And when someone dies, it's okay to have that grief moment. It's okay to be like, no, I'm not okay that they're not part of my life anymore. That I can be mad about it if I want to, that I'm not going to be able to have lunch with them anymore, and that I'm not going to be able to hear their stories, hear their laugh, and do those kind of things anymore. And, that's the piece of it that we don't talk about a lot. When something like that happens, everybody's focused on the person, their family, and, oh, they're better off because they're not suffering, or this, that, and the other. But all of us that are left behind, we're still suffering. And it's okay to not be grateful at that moment. Like, so said, sometimes it's okay. It's okay not to be grateful in the moment. But what it did was, it made me, once I got past that, it made me appreciate so much more the memories and the thoughts and the feelings that I had. And I was able to really just really embrace that and go, this is why she was so special to me. This is what mattered the most to me. And so being able to connect with people like that we all have death, we all have grief. So it's not always connecting in the good times, like accomplishing that goal. Sometimes we just need to sit with somebody. You don't even have to talk sometimes. Somebody is just knowing that, hey, I got your back. I'm here. We can just sit and be quiet together, and you can have your moment, and you can work through whatever you got to work through, but know that there's somebody on your side and going to support you through it. And so to me, that's the thing, that being able to write this book and done, and get it out there for people to see, is really about how we connect as human beings, and the impact that the relationship that we have with each other, and how important that is. I don't think we're meant to be solitary people. We're supposed to have relationships. We're supposed to be connected. We're supposed to have friends and that kind of things. And so if this book does that for someone, that it makes them feel not alone on this journey, then that's probably the biggest thing that I think I get from being able to write that book.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And yeah, when you started talking about that, I thought about how just a few years ago, I lost my brother to pancreatic cancer. And so I can resonate with everything you're saying and the power of connection in that way. All right, so we kind of can infer based on what you've said so far, but what would you say, what part of the book, or how does the book reflect a part of who you are?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It'd be hard to pick just one part, because I think, this is one of those moments where, growing up, it was, you think about, like, you don't want to be vulnerable. You don't want someone to find out the pieces of you that are not the perfect pieces, and that kind of thing. And so I think working through all that, being able to be really authentic and share real emotions and thoughts, and that kind of thing, that it's so powerful to be able to put that out there, and have someone, you know, see you for who you are. And yet they still find some reason to come back and talk to you again. It's like, it's one of those things where, what I hope that someone sees from that is that I truly do value the people that are in my life, that I wouldn't be where I am without the people that I have surrounded myself with,
Mhm.
starting from family and then on out to friends and colleagues, and whatever degree that they're in there. Every person that you encounter adds something to you, whether it's positive or negative. And so, I think it's so important that we're careful about who we bring into our lives, and who we trust for advice, and who we listen to, and who we take guidance from. And so I hope, one of the things when I was writing this book that I thought about a lot was, I worked for about 14 years on a college campus with sorority women, and watching them graduate and then start their lives. And I dealt a lot with the leaders of that organization, And it was always funny to me. So in 14 years, and then I'm thinking back to when I was in college and my group of people that, I was in the sorority with and all this other kind of stuff is that, we're not really that different, even decades apart,
Mm.
that we all go through the same things. We may look different because the styles have changed or the vernacular has changed on how we talk. Our soundtracks may sound different, all that kind of stuff. But there's such commonality in us, in that way that we can connect with each other on a human level that, we're all going to have struggles. We're all going to need some assistance. We're all going to have love in our life. We're all going to have days where it's sad in our life. And there's so many more commonalities than there are things that separate us, that when we can focus on those and we really build that core group of people around us, how much stronger we are.
Mm.
And, so I would hope that someone who reads my words and reads my stories really gets that feeling, is that the people around me mattered, that their stories mattered to me, that I am grateful for the opportunities that have come my way, and for those that encouraged me to step through those doors when they opened and take a risk, you know, or sometimes look at me and go, have you really thought this through? And are you, like maybe you need to, shut that one for a little bit and let's think about it. But that I hope they see me as that kind of person, is that I'm willing to help, I'm willing to share that knowledge, and I'm willing to be that connection and learn from you, just like I hope you learn from me.
Yes, yes. Now, this podcast is for, in my mind, and I believe most of the listeners are authors, high achieving women who've written nonfiction books. And I was mentioning this to you a little bit before we started recording. I'm trying to support authors because we have different identities, consultants, and all these other hats that we wear. And then authors, this thing that we kind of add on. So I want to kind of support that part of the identity of the listeners. So given that, what's something from all your work, you've given us so much already, but what's something from your book or from your experience that you can share as a word of advice or a tip or a tool for the woman I just described?
So for me, that would be, don't focus on it having to be perfect. I think we get so hung up on the world that we live in now. Everything is filtered, it's Instagrammable, it's all this other kind of stuff. We can only show the good sides of everything. And if the house isn't clean, the kids aren't dressed up just right, then we don't post that picture, we don't share. But, I tell everybody, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be perfectly you. And, to me, going back to this idea of success and personal branding and how you put yourself out there, which is a lot of what I talk about, is when you show up authentically, that's when the real connections happen. And, most days, I get to work, everything matches, the hair got brushed, the makeup got on, what, but you ran into me on a Saturday morning and I'd been out doing yard work. You might be, are you the same person? You got that ball cap, can't tell what's going on, whatever. But both of those are me. So sharing who you are and sharing it in a way that is authentic to yourself, and where you're not worried about, is this the side that I need to be on camera, or is this the side that I need to be on camera? Like, whatever it is, like, don't worry about it being perfect. If it's a story that matters to you and it's a message that matters, or if it's going to provide value to someone, just show up and do it. Don't worry about that. I got every I dotted and every T crossed just the way it needs to be. Just get out there, just do it, because you really will never know what impact that you're going to have on somebody until you get out there and just do it. If you wait till it's perfect, it's never going to get done.
Well, I mean, after that, what more can we say? What more can we say? Well, let me just ask one more question, although I do feel like, hey, we've said it all now. But let me just talk a moment about purpose, because the podcast is leadership purpose, as you know, and purpose is something that is dear to my heart and my own mission and message. So would you say having a sense of purpose is important? If so, why? If not, why not?
Yeah. And I think the older I've got, the more I've realized that. I was not one of those lucky ones, I think, at 21, 22, that I know exactly what's going to happen in life and what's going to matter to me. And I'm also one of those, I think purpose can change throughout your life because of what's happening in your life at that moment, what you've experienced, or what, you know, I'm lucky now. I have a much better position, and I can do more things now than I did than I could when I was 21 at the newspaper right out of college or whatever. And so our purposes, I think, change as our station in life changes, as our journey through life takes us and everything. And so, but I do think that there is value in having that idea of what you stand for, what matters to you, and what you want to leave behind. Like one of the things I do with, like when I'm doing coaching on branding and how you want yourself out there, one of the things I ask my clients to think about is 10 years from now, what do you want someone to say that you've contributed? And, you know, it doesn't, I mean, like, we're not going to all come up with a cure for cancer. We're not all going to, take the shuttle to the moon. We're not all going to do those things. But if I help my neighbor, or if I helped a kid be confident in what they're doing, I helped them read so they didn't feel left out, or I helped, in some kind of way, whatever that purpose is, whatever you're driven to, there's a reason that you're driven to it. And I'm a big believer that God gave us all talents and skills that we should embrace and use, and they're not all the same. So just because my purpose is helping people achieve success and get their message out there and do those kind of things, my purpose is not the same as yours. And, I think we should embrace that. And I don't have to be, any certain thing for it to be a true calling and for it to be whatever, as long as I'm living in the moment and I'm doing something that I think is pointing me in that direction that gets me to something I value. And I think that's the other key to a great purpose, is that it's in alignment with your beliefs and your values. And if you're doing something that all of that, is checking the box, like, yes, these things matter to me, whether you call it purpose or not, maybe it's just, this is where I feel led to go do something right now. And you can't really define it into, here's my purpose in a sentence, but you know that I'm supposed to be doing something in this area. Follow that gut feeling and do it, because you really don't know where it's going to take you. And, and don't be afraid to let that purpose change over life. As you gain experience, as you gain knowledge, and as you gain skill, you may see another opportunity or another window where you're able to use your skills in another way that can really help someone and drive them, forward in their own journey. And so that's what I would really say, is just embrace where you are at the moment and the message that matters to you. And as life changes and as you change, be flexible with it and know that purpose doesn't have to be the same for 50 years. It can be, this 5 years I'm focused on this. And, right now I look at my life as I'm really focused on women in the workplace and how do we show up and how do we do those things. And all that has come based on the series of things that's happened in my life and my career and what I've seen. But I would not have been effective at 30 like I am now, because I didn't have the experiences and stuff to play on. But what mattered to me at 30 was something else. And that's when I was giving back to the college women and doing those kind of things. And so still helping women, still helping empower them in a way, still helping set them up on a success journey path. I just didn't know I was calling it that at the moment. It was, to me, it was just volunteering and, okay, I'm paying back my dues and I'm doing these kind of things. And so, but if you really get down to the core of it, it really was about empowering women to achieve. And so I think if you really look at it, even as things move, there's going to be some thread that connects different stages of your life together. And that's really what a core purpose kind of gets formed from.
Yes, and I resonate with that. I see that as I look back on my own life, and just like you, in my young adult years, I didn't have the same kind of purpose, but underneath, they had one foundation underneath that carries throughout life. So I definitely can relate to that. All right, Chellie, I know you've been so generous with your time. Just let me ask you one more thing. Is there something that I have not asked you that you want to share before we tell people how they can be in touch with you?
Just, like embrace the day that you live in. One of the things that when I'm coaching with women and stuff like that is, and one of the edits in the book is insert moments of celebration. Especially in the workforce, we move from project to project to project, and we don't ever really take a moment to celebrate. Hey, I checked this one off the box. I accomplished this, or I did whatever, because as soon as it's over, you're focused on the next one. Same thing in life. Did you get the kid out of sixth grade and he's going to seventh? Did the dog not tear the house up today while you ran to town? And, like, take a moment and just celebrate something each day, big or small. In fact, I really encourage you to pick the small thing and celebrate it, because that's where we start adding the joy in our moments and really, really living in the moment and living in the day, and really taking time to appreciate how today is different from yesterday, and how the people that I'm around are impacting what's happening in my life today, and really giving them that moment of celebration too. But really and truly, that would be the one thing. If anything that I would add to what we've talked about today is insert those moments of celebration. Take a minute for whatever's going on, and celebrate something that went right, or celebrate some accomplishment. I tell some people some days it's, I just didn't strangle the guy in the break room at work because he just wouldn't quit talking incessantly. It was like, and now I live outside of Atlanta, and sometimes it's like, I didn't let road rage get the best of me today. So whatever you have to find in the day, someday you have to dig deep and get to that moment of celebration. But I think when we start training our brain to look at those things and look for the positives that are going on, it becomes infectious into other areas of our life, and we're really able to make those impacts that we want to make.
Yes, yes. I'm feeling uplifted and want to celebrate in this moment right now.
Then I have accomplished my mission.
You have. You have. Your work is done. Your work is done here. Chellie, thank you so much for taking time out and sharing your deep and heartfelt wisdom with us. Really appreciate you sharing from your heart in this way.
I have so enjoyed it. It's been such a great conversation.
Thank you. Okay, everyone. Oh, and let's tell everyone where they can get in touch with you, because I'm sure they want to get their hands on your book or hear more about what you're doing and how to be in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm on all the social platforms. You can connect with me there. I do a lot on LinkedIn, especially with the career side of things. It's Chellie Phillips, or you can go to my website, which is chellephillips.com.
Okay, we'll be sure to put that in the show notes. Okay, everyone, if you want to be in touch with me, you can reach me on my website, robinlowens.com, robinlowens.com, or I'm on social media, primarily LinkedIn, at Robin L. Owens, PhD, Robin L. Owens, PhD. And if you're an author and you want to expand your message beyond your book and you've been thinking about creating a course, I have a free training that will help you do that. Just head on over to createmasterfulcourses.com, createmasterfulcourses.com, and you can sign up for my free training. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week, and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Dr. Robin signing off. See you next time.